Part two. How do toxins impact our health? Yesterday, we talked a little bit about endocrine disruptors, right? And how toxins can mimic estrogen and affect the hormone messaging that takes place in our bodies. They can have more than just endocrine disrupting effects. Toxins can be cell mutators, meaning that they change the biology of the cell. They can be neurological inhibitors. That means it's affecting our brains. They're neurotoxins. There are leaky gut promoters. Let's talk a little bit about some of the symptoms that exposure, or may I even say overexposure to toxins can have. Some of the things or signs that toxins might be affecting your health include things like constipation, weight gain, constant fatigue, skin problems, headaches and migraines, mood swings, bad breath. Maybe it wasn't just that you forgot to brush your teeth. Muscle pain or spasms, insomnia, and sweating or overheating. Now, don't get me wrong, some of these symptoms can definitely be attributed to other things. They aren't only signs of toxins. But if you have some of those symptoms, a good place to start might be thinking about limiting your exposure to toxins to see if they would improve, those symptoms would improve, right? So keep that in mind, right? This is a starting point. These are signs or red flags that there might be something that is going on within your body. I also just want to state for the record that I personally believe that God designed our bodies with the innate capacity to heal. We see it every single day, right? Say you cut your finger in the kitchen, your body automatically wants to heal that cut in your finger, right? Your blood clots, you form a scab, and that cut will heal over time, right? So our bodies are naturally designed to want to heal, to always want to present the best version of themselves that they can. So I want to give all credit to our designer for how he thought of the process, created the process for healing to work. So when it comes to toxins, our bodies are also designed with mechanisms to help filter out those toxins. We have organs like our liver and our kidneys and our intestines that are designed to filter, or I should say, actually, first to identify what the toxins are, because we have to know what's friend versus foe, right? So our bodies are designed to know what is a toxin, what is a foreign invader, and to filter that out through our system so that it exits our body, right? Again, that design is genius. However, the day and age in which we live, where we are constantly bombarded with toxins every single day, our bodies sometimes have a way of falling behind. It can't keep up with the overexposure to toxins that we have all of the time. So what happens when those toxins are in our body and they can't get eliminated out of our body? They can be reabsorbed. So what was intended to move through our intestines and exit our body can be reabsorbed back into our bloodstream, then continue to circulate in our bloodstream and affect our organs. Our liver, can become bogged down, right? Where it just becomes overwhelmed with all the filtration that it needs to do. We are seeing huge increases in fatty liver disease. And this isn't alcoholic, this is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, even in teenagers, right? Which should definitely not be the case, but there is a huge number of young people developing fatty liver disease. Again, I would attribute that 100% to their food sources, more than likely, and the toxins that they're being exposed to, through their food, through their bodies, through their skin, the products that they're using. And our liver just becomes so overwhelmed that it can't process it. It's too much. And sometimes in that case, too, the liver goes, what do I do with this? And some of that then is stored in our fat cells and kind of hung on to there in our fat cells. Um, so when I think of the fat cells and I think of the liver, the other thing it just draws my attention to is insulin sensitivity, right? One of those signs of being overwhelmed with toxins or having toxin overload was weight gain, right? Well, if our liver doesn't know what to do and we're storing things in our fat cells and we can't make the right amount of insulin, or we're becoming sensitive to insulin where our body has to continue to produce more, it only makes sense that it's going to have a metabolic effect, right? And that we would gain weight. So I'll leave that there. The other way, or I should say one other way, there's multiple ways. I'm trying to highlight some of the main ways that we see these toxins affect our body. And another one of those is our gut. So one thing that I found absolutely fascinating is that the lining of our intestines, our large intestine, is a single cell thick, just one cell. So you have, one cell lined up next to each other that creates the lining of our intestine. And even though it's only one cell thick, it's thick. It is the surface area of a tennis court, as our entire intestinal system is considered, right? But, and again, here's God's amazing design, right? It was designed to be that single mucosal layer so that it can easily absorb the nutrients that we need from our food, right? We want to allow those things in. Again, here comes the problem. When things are in our system that are not designed to be there, we have an inflammatory response. And that single cell layer lining can be penetrated. It can even become open, where those single cells that are together then separate and things are able to pass through that lining into our bloodstream. Again, these are things that should not be allowed to be passed through, but they gain access to our bloodstream, which then gives them the ability to pass through our liver and pass through our other organs and, infiltrate our entire body. So again, I guess I don't want to go too far. Something to really consider, right? When you are having symptoms like IBS or colitis or constipation, consider how toxins might be playing a role in that process. Okay. I also shared about fermented foods yesterday because that is a fabulous way to help heal that lining of your gut. So if that's something that you have never explored, I encourage you to start making fermented foods part of your daily diet, right? Having a couple of servings, I've heard is, like 3 or 4 per day. And I'm not talking about large servings, but like a tablespoon or 2, with each meal. So you're adding in, some sauerkraut, or you're adding in kimchi, or you're adding in kefir. My favorite kombucha. I love to drink kombucha. So adding those things into your diet can drastically help with healing that layer of your gut. The other one that I wanted to touch on, as far as toxins, again, entering our bloodstream, is the blood-brain barrier. And this, again, was designed as a protective measure to keep things out of our brain, right? Our main control center of our entire body, so that it wouldn't affect other functions. And there's only selected substances that are allowed to pass that blood-brain barrier. It's kind of a similar analogy, really, to that mucosal lining of our gut, right? It's designed to only let certain things through. Other things should not be allowed to get through. But what we're finding is that more and more, some of these chemicals, which really, if you study this subject as well, there's like 10,000 additives that are identified by the Food and Drug Administration that have not been significantly tested as safe. So they allow these things into our products, into our food, without really any knowledge of the effect that they might be having on our bodies. They're given a label of generally recognized as safe. And basically, until there is enough evidence, there's sufficient evidence to prove that something is harmful, it will continue to be allowed into our food and care product system. So what we're finding is that some of these chemicals are now penetrating that blood-brain barrier. And, again, when we look at brain fog, when we look at anxiety, depression, fatigue, even things like Alzheimer's, right? Many of those things could be attributed to neurotoxins that are crossing that blood-brain barrier. So when we talk about how toxins can affect our health, it can affect us in so many different ways in almost every area of our body. So it is absolutely worthwhile to look for ways to limit your exposure so that, again, you'll never completely eliminate it, but if we can reduce it, we're going to put ourselves in a place where we can have the capacity, that our bodies can have the capacity to filter out what does come through, right? And heal as it wants to heal, to provide or present, I should say, the best version of ourselves. So there's your nugget of truth for today on toxins and how they affect your body. Next, I'm going to take a look at ways that we can limit our exposure and how we can process or detoxify if we've been in a place where maybe we haven't been conscious of the toxins that we have been eating or we have been applying to our bodies. How can I clean up my body and get it out of there? That's the next step. So stay tuned.